We've got 4 minutes. Hi, Miss Jennifer.
Oh, no, I didn't put it there.
Yeah. Great. Wait, I hear you. Wait a minute.
It's showing 0. There was. I like being over there better. You like over there? Oh, there.
Nobody see this?
So is she live?
Jennifer, you're with us, right?
I'm here.
Oh, no, because I'm in
Jennifer.
Zoom, so you need to share.
Dinner.
Yeah. There you go.
Bigger than life.
Speaker verse.
Yes,
Good.
looks great.
Yes, thank you.
You know, given all those people that we had up there, and then we had the report of that one person supposedly that came down with the big C, right? There was a lot of people in that one room. I'm surprised that there were bunches of people that were not sick.
It's come up, we had, I think they said 980 was what the number is, yeah, the biggest conference they've had so far. It was packed,
It was
their big ballroom
pleasantly
was
packed, yes.
packed. So. Yeah, I think there was, and it was, this is the first time I've seen almost as many GMs and staff as board. A lot of times you saw a lot, not as many staff, but this time I think it seems like a really good balance. So. All right, Jennifer, we got 1 minute, or we can start promptly now. It's kind of up to the chair. Rin.
Alrighty.
Record?
We're gonna be reviewing the financials for the first month of our fiscal period. Let's go ahead and get right into it. Jennifer, just so you know, we were talking a few minutes ago, just having a discussion relative to the new format as far as the reports and stuff. And I like the detail that we're getting. So if you have a chance to look at them.
Oh, yeah, I also have some clarifying questions, so.
Okay, very good. All right, let's get started
Can
here.
we do a roll call?
Yes. roll
Yeah, well,
call.
let's do that.
Director Brown,
Present.
Director Jeffries,
Present,
thank you.
All right. Anybody online aside from,
We have, no community members on Zoom or in the room, and I didn't receive any emails. We did not receive any emails.
all right, so let's start with the review of the financial statements for July of 2023. Report number 1. The balance sheet. This is the new format.
Correct.
Liabilities and equity for July are $11,609,125. So being the first month of the fiscal period, there's nothing to compare month to month by. Report number 2, income statement. Total net income for the month of July is a negative of $157,873. And this is due, in part, actually it's due solely in my mind, to the payment of community health contracts, and those were $162,000 and some change. Report number 3. Profit and loss actual versus operating plan, refer to the approved budget. Based upon the approved operating plan, the district is under the plan in year-to-date net income by $213,484.
And Terry, if you don't mind, I'll stop right here. Jennifer, I think you might have a question on report 3. And then just for the record, to let everyone know, we are still working with our bookkeeper to clarify this report. By moving from desktop to online, we're still working on customizing some of the reports. So there's the 6 columns that will be reduced down to the 3 columns like we had seen in previous reports, so that you're not having that redundancy of the 1 month versus the year to date. And then you'll also see we broke this down by class, so that we'll be able to see, since we look at this report to see how we're doing against our operation plan, the budget, so to speak. What's nice is that we can see how is admin faring versus how is wellness center faring.
right,
Meaning, where are we seeing the detail of those expenses in a more clear format? So the treasurer's report talks about the overall scope of our spending against the plan, where these 2 reports will give us much more detail, and it'll be much cleaner to read at the next meeting when she gets it down to just those traditional 3 columns that we're used to looking at.
okay,
So,
very good, thank you.
okay. Sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to make sure we talked about
No
that.
interruptions, all good. Part of the flow. So report number 3, the profit and loss actual versus the plan, we are under budget versus net income by $213,484. And that again is due solely to the fact that we had community health contract payments of $162,000. Report number 4, the LAIF investment account. LAIF posted $22,957.45 in quarterly interest earnings. The cost value is $1,636,215, with the fair market value of $1,611,391. The performance rate for the month of July was 3.305, and that really was just for the month of July. And that's a lot better than 2 quarters back when it was maybe 1% or 1.5%.
Indeed.
Report number 5, the Cal Trust investment account statement. The cost basis, average cost amount for this account is $5,865,433. The district earned $16,591.76 in dividend income this month, and an unrealized gain of $5,834.47, bringing the portfolio's total value to $5,670,194.04.
Again, nice to talk about gains instead of
Yes,
unrealized losses in the $25,000 and $30,000 marks.
As of July 2023, the 1-year yield on the medium-term fund for these funds are allocated was 2.74%. And that certainly is better than earlier. Let's go on to report number 6, and then we can talk in a general sense about our returns on all 3 of those accounts. The class investment account statement. The cost basis average cost amount for this account is $1,887.03. The district earned $887.03 in dividend this month and an unrealized loss of 0, bringing the portfolio's total value to $1,887.03. As of July 2023, the 1-year yield on the medium-term fund where these funds are allocated was 5.2934%. So in a general sense, all of our investment accounts are trending higher for this reporting period, certainly compared to quarter number 3 for us in January through March. And I was mentioning to Rachel that even Wells Fargo Bank is offering 5% on one of their investment accounts. I know because I've used Wells Fargo for many years, and we gave them some money to put in there. 5% makes a lot of sense. So I guess one of the questions I would have, and Jennifer, did you and I talk about this up north about why we had as a district chosen Pacific Western as our operating bank? Not that I have a problem, I'm just wondering.
Yeah, you mentioned that it's not clear why certain vendors have been picked, but we didn't talk specifically about PNC.
Right, so, and the reason I'm asking is, if you look at a full service bank, for example, and it goes back to our credit card. We've had some discussions about that. Well, heck, if you had one bank that was a full service bank, credit card would be a small potato issue, but you'd be able to have it and get roughly whatever amount you needed to have on a balance. So is it worthwhile to have a discussion? Not that I'm looking to make changes, but operationally, do we need to have a discussion about consolidating into one full service bank?
Well, the only little bit of history I can give you as to why we ended up with Pacific Western was sometime back in, I'm gonna say it was probably around 2014, because Jennifer, I think it happened before you got there.
Yes.
Yeah, the district, somehow between the then new bookkeeper and the previous CEO, they moved us from Chase, where we had our account, to Pacific Western, without going into the meeting minutes to find out what the rationale was. I know that that's when that change happened. A little bit of the history that I heard was that they wanted to have a very community local branch that they could go in and get things managed relatively easily. I don't know that I would say that moving things to Pacific Western Bank has ever made doing anything easy.
Well, it certainly didn't help you as far as even getting a credit card, I would think.
Correct, because when I got here and I started asking about that, and indicated that the district should have a credit card for expenses, and the board had already had this conversation as well. The bank couldn't seem to manage it because they had to use an outside source for that, and they couldn't figure out what we were as a special district. Hence going to CSDA, finding out about Umpqua. They already knew what kind of structure.
So you were filling in the gaps, that's what you're doing.
Right. But the idea of moving to a more comprehensive full service bank that has better online access and availability would be, I think, a gift to the operations Because pulling down the reports and getting the information from the online process at Pacific Western is as cumbersome as going into the bank has become.
And not seeing transactions on a daily basis makes it very difficult with Pacific Western. If we could move to somebody who could show daily transactions, it would be super helpful.
Yeah.
And what if, as a district, what if the board ever decided that we needed to borrow money for some reason? Because we certainly have the authority to do that. We would need a full service bank to be able to help us with that.
Potentially either the full service bank, or there are a number of different financial lending opportunities and relationships through CSDA and ACHD, where those associations already have those types of relationships. But we could bring all of that forward in our investigation to make sure that we're not only getting the right kind of financial institution, but what services could be best useful to us.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not, like I said, I'm not looking to make change for change sakes, that's just not me. But given the fact of what we've gone through this last 6 months with Pacific Western, is it time, because this is where that discussion needs to be had in this particular venue, is it time to have that discussion? And have the discussion presented then to the board of directors for some kind of consideration. So
Well,
need-
I would agree with you, Terry, that it's a good time to consider it. And if staff, if Judith and Rachel indicate that it would be more efficient organizationally for the tasks they do, I say it would be a good thing to open up.
Mhm, mhm. So, I'm gonna add that to my report to the board that we have had the discussion.
Mhm.
The board wants to take it up for further consideration, then we can do it as a group. I think we just need to have that discussion. And on a personal note, I think that you're having those kind of issues with your operating bank, Pacific Western. You need to start looking for some changes, because they're not gonna get any better, that's for sure.
I will tell you, 6 months ago,
Mhm.
when the regional banking challenges. And I made my first call to Pacific Western. I'm actually still waiting for a call back.
Wow,
Oh, that's not good.
that is not good at all.
So I welcome this conversation a great deal. I know Judith is nodding her head because we've had this internal conversation many, many times. So I think it's easy for us to say we would be happy to take on this research job and bring forward. I think we can look at some of our local. I would also recommend that we take a look at some of the partners with CSDA, because a lot of times they'll offer things through that association that can support us. But we'll also look at the other larger banks that can offer services.
Okay. Yeah, I was impressed by the fact that we had some banks at the CSDA that meant too, they knew what we were all about.
Exactly.
And those
Yeah.
banks weren't there. If you want to talk about, let's say Bank of America, for example, I didn't see them having the booth there. But Five Star was there, I was very glad to see that, they get it. And Wells Fargo was there too, I mean, goodness knows they've had their own political and operational issues over the years, but
Mhm.
that kind of a service is what I think our district deserves, so, okay. All right, enough said about that. Report number, did we do 6? We did already,
We
right?
did.
All right. Check detail report number 7.
And I'll make a note here as well. You'll notice that in the memo description line, there's no details. Marnie and I had a conversation about the fact that our previous report on check detail did allow those memos. She and I sat through it, and for whatever reason, it would not pull the memo for this So that's another one of those things that's on her list to communicate with the online support, to figure out how we can amend this report so that memo description is on there. And part of the reason I made this an important piece is in a previous finance / board meeting, I think, was that 2 years ago, Jennifer, that the Meadows made that comment? Yeah. They felt that this report was not transparent enough because without the detail,
Mhm.
a check that may be written to me that is clearly a reimbursement, you can't know that. Or there may be a check written to an individual, but without knowing that that individual is the handy person or the plumber or the whatever, it's hard to know again where that money is going. So we will continue to work on making sure that those memos somehow get transferred over into this report, because that's really what gives the best purpose of this report.
Right.
So again, that's one of those reports that's under investigation right now.
So where's the amount?
You should be able to see the amount. Oh, yours is cut off.
Oh my gosh.
So it's on the screen.
Is it on the back?
No, it says page 2 is on the back and then.
Oh, my, yeah.
It might have.
I think the printouts are coming out funny because I couldn't print out Teresa's report either.
Oh.
The reports do have them, but the printouts are weird.
Okay, yeah, so we'll need to make sure that those are scaled down so that they're printing correct size. Okay, on the glitch list.
Yeah, because in PDF form, it did okay, but
Yeah.
I guess for the other, for the Word, not so much.
That probably is a report that's meant to be printed.
Landscape.
Landscape as
Mhm.
opposed to
The
portrait.
landscape wasn't giving us the correct either.
Yeah,
We tried on both.
Interesting.
Cause I think transparency really starts with the dollar.
The dollar amount.
Yeah, exactly,
Not
exactly.
not really gonna help you. Luckily, it is visible in the packet online, so you can see all those there. But again, that doesn't do any good if someone gets a printed copy and it's like, yeah, great, here's all the
I
vendors.
suppose you could probably override on your printer and tell it to print.
Oh, I'm sure, but
Yeah.
since this report is already undergoing reconstruction,
Mhm.
we'll make sure that it's set.
Yeah, that just needs a little customization.
Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty, and any questions? I don't have any questions with regard to the utility board itself. And I assume that we can work on being able to get the rest of the information on the report. Visa statement. This report lists all of the charges made using the district credit card for the month of July. Anything we need to talk about there?
Pretty standard charges, nothing unusual. I don't believe we had any missing receipts.
District charges for CSDA will be on next month's cycle.
Yes. Well, some of will show up in finance and then some will show up the month after.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like our Uber and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And just so everyone knows, Terry and I made sure that we split our Uber on the district card. And then on the way back, we split it with, 4 different people. So we piled as many people into our vehicle as possible. So
We did.
we were being prudent.
Absolutely. Report number 10, Community Development Disbursement Report for July, formerly called something else.
Yeah, report number 9.
The 9th.
Did we rename it correctly on your,
I know you called it report number 10.
so we gotta fix that. And I'll go ahead and jump in here. I had hoped that we would have been able to fix the challenge with the reporting for this. So, Jennifer, the Community Investment Fund, we renamed this year the Community Development Disbursement so that it was much more easy to understand what it actually is for, right?
That was gonna be one of my questions, so thank you for that.
Yeah, so we had renamed it in the budget, and of course, we talked about that, I don't know how many months ago now. This is the first time you would be seeing what was CIF to CDD. There was a challenge that QuickBooks Online didn't know how to pick up the tags of those expenditures. So the report, when Marty kept printing it out, it wasn't picking up all of those expenses, which meant that the report would have been incorrect. So Marty and I looked it over yesterday. There was nothing in there that is substantive. They were the regular costs that you've already seen from having reviewed the checks, the construction for room 5 at the Wellness Center primarily. We are working to get that report so that it looks just like it used to, right? So you'll see the 1 month expenditures for those capital improvements primarily, or development costs.
Mhm.
And they'll show up one at a time, and we'll see 1 month, 2 month, 3 month, and at the end of the 3rd month, that first quarter, if there is a certain amount to go back into the operating, we will bring that forward and say, we make the recommendation that LAIF reimburse the operating account for these CDD expenses. So that report will stay the same, but Marnie is challenged with trying to figure out how to pull it. In the old QuickBooks version, she had to pull a certain amount of expenses and then transfer it into Excel and edit the format so that we could get the data that we needed. The idea was to have as few of those amended style reports as possible so that it's coming directly out of our financial software. So we are working on that one. She's again got 4 or 5 things on that tickler list for QuickBooks Online to help with that reporting, so it's consistent with what we're used to looking at and being able to report on.
Fair enough. So that's report number 9.
9, so we need to fix that in your treasurer's report.
So there's nothing to pull for this particular month. Okay, and I think you pretty well covered that. Let me read the disclosures. The investments of the district are in compliance with the district's 2022-23 investment policy. And actually that should be the 23-24 policy, since July is in this new fiscal period.
Right, and we have to pull to make sure that we've updated that. Typically, that ends up getting amended in December has been for whatever reason, that was the last time the last one was done.
Okay.
And I don't know if we purposely put it to a calendar or just that's when we've gotten to it. So that was on a list that we're looking into to bring that forward to make sure that it's still consistent.
Okay.
That may be a topic that I'll bring forward to finance next month. After having sat in on the conversation at CSDA about understanding your reserve policy and policies and what you should have. Our friend Tom, the CAO over at Grossmont, had spent a number of years in the water district's worlds where they have multiple reserve policies for investments, capital improvements. We've had those discussions here, but we haven't had separate policies for them. So this might be a good time for us to tighten down what we want to build in reserves. Our current kind of investment policy hasn't addressed some of those reserve pieces. So you may see some policy recommendations coming forward that would be more clear cut for that.
When I was onto our website and in the policy section, didn't I see a policy relative to reserves?
Yes. Yes, and it is very broad, and it rolls in our multi-year maintenance program. It builds in our operations, but there's not a lot of clarity to it. And after having sat in on that reserve policy session, there's a lot of things that should be added to it that makes it more clear. Like, these are funds that come out of operations, not funds that come from investments. Okay, they can be used for so on and so forth.
And wouldn't it make sense then to consider having a reserve study done?
Well, potentially,
I mean, having a reserve plan, and I'm just having the discussion here. The whole point is to be able to I hate to use the predict because we're not weathermen, we don't predict anything, but to project the lifespan of a particular piece of equipment and then project when you're going to replace that.
Yeah.
I.e., something is good for 10 years, okay, 10 years down the road, you plan on replacing a $10,000 air conditioner, for example. And that's your reserve study, so that allows you to decide how much money you have to set aside to be, and so when you get to that 10th year, you have at least $10,000 in the bank.
Yeah.
Or in your fund to replace that item. The board decides at year 10 if you want to go another year or two. Or maybe if it fails in year number 8, then you have to deal with that.
And we did do a property condition assessment specifically for this property, so that we had those reserve spreads for replacing the elevator, the cladding, all the various things that go into the property. But we only did it for this site because we were still reinvesting so much over there. It didn't make sense to try to build all that in. But we didn't have a separate policy specific to that property condition assessment. So I think you're right, when we talk about doing a reserve study, I didn't link the two.
Same thing.
Same thing. For this property, we're already in, and we have those year spreads, and that's built into some of the assumptions on this year's budget. But we will absolutely need to do it for the wellness center property. As we go forward, right now, it's almost as though we've reset the clock on a brand new construction. But we'll wanna build that out and definitely increase that into our overall reserve policies.
You know, and allows us to better justify large dollars that we're sitting on, so to
Right.
speak,
Yes,
an investment account or whatever. At least the public understands more easily what that is for, as opposed to we're just sitting on money that we should be using to
mhm,
invest out in the community or whatever.
Right, right. So
That's-
that is something you'll see more policy coming that way, but I'll follow up on that note with Tom when I get his templates to make sure that we're adding in some space to amend that, because once that facility is in some level, we'll look to finance and or facilities to say, let's do a study now at this point. So we're addressing those, because
Sure.
the whole property is not gonna be done at once, so.
It might make sense, just for discussion's sake, to maybe consider having a benchmark time set towards the end of this particular fiscal period. We'll have done quite a bit. Hopefully we'll have done things, you know, in our parking lot and our solar and whatever, at least be in a position to know where we are. We're certainly gonna have all of our air conditioners up and going, I would hope.
That's what we're waiting on.
You said this week for the quotes.
Okay,
And that's a large amount of money too, so.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, and I think having as I recall in my previous life, having reserve studies done, they weren't that expensive. I mean, I think.
no, yeah, I think we spent, I'll have to go back and check, but I wanna say our property condition assessment for this property was close to 9,000, I wanna say.
Wow, that much, huh?
Well, it hadn't been done yet.
done. It was sad.
It was, yeah, there was, nothing had been done. Since that time, we've had to redo the parking lot, redo the HVAC, redo the internal, upgrades inside the building, so it was pretty comprehensive of what needed to be done. And I may be wrong in the amount that we spent for it, but that's what I kind of recall.
Yeah, my recollection, when we had those done, it was less than $1,000 for the annual report, but you had to do a more comprehensive one, I think every 5 years or something like that, and that was a little more expensive, but it wasn't in that range, but.
Yeah, this is the first one that's been done on this building. There was a commercial, real estate style done, which didn't have any viable information in it, other than to say, you know, these are the property boundaries, and yes, the building is standing. Well, it didn't really tell us about the fact that there is historic flooding in the elevator pit. Well, that's kind of a big potential problem, and
So
so,
that would be an interesting narrative, but what I would look at is, okay, you have an elevator of a certain brand, and that brand has so many components to
Right.
it, and they have a varied lifestyle, life expectancy, for the pumps and the motors and all that kind of stuff. And cab replacement or cab upgrades and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And you're looking at, you know, $100,000 or
Right.
maybe in parts. But you need to be able to have that in your reserve study to put into a fund
yes.
for whatever you're gonna do.
Yeah.
That's.
And I will, and I'm happy to forward that, property condition assessment. Actually, I should probably put it in the board portal now that we have that, so it's easy to see where we pulled these numbers. That was presented to the board. Jennifer, I think we did that in 2019, maybe
Mhm.
2018, somewhere around there. But I'll bring that forward because we're starting to address that, and the elevator modernization, as they called it, was on that, as well as storefronts and windows and doors and the number of pieces. We obviously already addressed many of them because many of our systems already passed useful life. And we fixed that, but some of the things, the elevator gets very little use here, but it is on a regular monthly maintenance. So we've not had any challenges with replacements and such. But the modernization is, like, do we really care that it looks a little old?
I haven't looked. Does that have the certification in that?
Yes, it does. That took the state 2 additional years.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, to get that to us. So. But those are all current, and that's something that Judith serves as our safety officer as well for the district. So she is responsible for making sure those certifications are done, they're posted. Same thing with all of our fire extinguishers, our fire systems. So she's monitoring all of those.
All right. I think that's it for the report from my perspective. Do we want to have a discussion on an update for the audit report?
Oh, yeah, I actually got an email back from Stacy, the primary that's been on our audit report. She is working through drafts right now. She asked for some clarification. Our previous auditors had, requested this very long, cumbersome, overly detailed management discussion and analysis report. Stacy asked if that was something that we really wanted, or did we want to potentially work through their new draft format? I asked for the new draft format because the one we had was. And we did that. We wrote it, but the previous auditors had requested this behemoth. So the new auditor is saying, let me send you the kind of draft of what we're looking for, which is more typical to who you are. And then obviously Susan and I will still go back and rewrite, but I don't think it's gonna have the 7 pages that it, so that basically all of that means is we have a couple of draft revisions and we should have it by the end of the month. So it should be probably in good chance it'll be in your October finance meeting.
Can we get some kind of a commitment from our auditors that, okay, we can't expect a final document by, assuming no surprises or rug pulling out and all that kind of stuff. We need to pin them down to a pretty close definite time frame.
We have that in our contract with them, but let me go back and make sure that we're on target with that. I'm pretty sure we are, but we can go back and just make sure that we haven't missed the timeline.
Okay. You know, having a discussion to the extent that, okay, so we're presuming that you have everything that you needed, and that if you needed anything beforehand, you would have asked, and we are expecting to be able to have our final report in October. Is that a fair expectation? And you need to have a yes or no.
Yeah.
I got you. We're not gonna let anybody weasel around on us.
No, and I don't feel like they're even interested in trying to weasel.
But we need to make sure they understand that it's a priority to us. It may not be to them, but it is to us.
Yeah.
And that way, if they have a problem, it won't come as a surprise.
Yeah.
Or an excuse for them for delaying getting it up. Okay, Jennifer, do you have anything else?
No, I got my questions answered and I think we're on all the right tracks that have been discussed today. Sorry, I'm kind of silent, but that's just the way it is right now. Good meeting. Thank you.
Okay, I'm good. Any other questions? Steph, you okay? You guys do a good job. Appreciate it.
Yes.
All right, we are done.
Okay.
Bye-bye, Jennifer.
Feel better.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Oh, isn't she pretty?
I know.
Beautiful.
Especially
photo.
that.
So no board meeting next